some officers that I've spoken to, they've had moments like that. They knew they were called and chosen to do what they do.
Sure.
Because they had a moment where they'll tell you, it's like a voice from inside of me said, you have to do this. Now they battle, well, I was told I had to do this, but really to see all these things and deal with all this stuff all the time, you got to get back to that. Here's what I find. Many times officers forget that they were called. They forget that as they move along the way in their career. You got to get back to that. That voice was the foundation. That's
back
what
to
got
basics.
it started. Back to basics. Why do you do what you do? What made you do that? What was the first thing that you said at the academy or your entry going into the academy that you wanted to be an officer for? All the things that involves moving forward can alter or change the eye of why you said you wanted to do what you started out doing. There's another guy in the Bible, his name was Jeremiah. He was called from birth, actually. God speaks in Jeremiah chapter 1. He says Jeremiah was a prophet. That's the Old Testament. It's a book, and the whole book's written about him. And God says to him, I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. And then he says, I picked you while you were in her womb. And then he says, I ordained you, or another way to say that is I called and chose you to be a prophet to Israel while you were still in her womb. Some officers, they're born, their parents will tell you that kid was going to be a cop from day one.
Right.
In diapers.
Mm-hmm.
He was, you could just tell in diapers, this child was going to be a cop. That's called and chosen.
So, take that example right there. You said that the word says that God knew them before they were formed. And see, I think this is the key point, right? That sometimes officers lose sight of, is that really speaks and affirms the fact that we are spirit beings.
Oh, yeah.
We were a spirit and created by the Creator and then placed into, right, this bodily form for the purpose of carrying out the calling that the Creator put on our spirit to walk out in this earthly realm. Is that fair?
That's fair, and it gives you peace, and it also gives you great strength, because when times are bad, ugly, mean, worse than we've ever seen, you can go back to that when you ask yourself, why am I doing this?
That's right.
I can tell you why I'm doing it. God called. There's no more confidence in a man or woman than to say, God called me. That's enough.
That's right.
God called me to do what I'm doing. Therefore, if God called me, He has to be the one I trust to anoint me, empower me is another great word, to do what I'm doing, especially under deep adverse circumstances.
Well, and that's why officers need to know, if God called you, He's going to equip you with everything that you need to walk this calling out and fulfill what He needs you to do here. And I talk to officers about this too. Even whether you're a believer or you're not, in the pit of every officer, they know that there is something that has drawn them to do this job.
That's right.
Because listen, most people understand, outside of that, it is completely irrational for a human being to do the things that officers do, risking their lives for people that they don't even know. And most people can get, well, I would risk my life for my child. I would risk my life for a family member.
Yeah, or even
somebody
a deep friend.
Care deeply for.
Yeah.
But most folks would never consider not only risking their life, but willingly laying down their life for people that they don't even know.
That's right.
Or even for the cause of something, the cause of peace, justice, sanctity of life of others in their community. It's just not inherently within them. But there is this group of folks that it is inherently within. And there's something to be said for that. But I think it's important for officers to remember that it should be striking that everything in the world right now is doing its level best to drive you away from that foundation, to keep you from going back to basics and drilling back into that sturdy footing of why you're doing what you're doing. The question needs to be why. And, I remind officers that, we're told we don't wrestle with flesh and blood. This isn't about
That's right.
the other person. What is it about? It's about these other spiritual forces.
Unseen.
If you were created as a spirit before you, and then that spirit was then placed into a bodily form, why is it so hard to believe that while you're walking on the earth and carrying out your responsibilities, that there are other evil spirits that are trying to keep you from carrying that out?
Well, most legitimately, truly, most officers believe that there is spirits of evil because they see them.
They see it.
In the eyes of humans.
That's right.
That have done horrible, horrendous things. I remember talking to detectives, especially homicide detectives that have had to do interviews, and they're asking me or talking to me about it because it really bothered them that they looked in this human's eyes and they saw something else. Their words were, I saw somebody else in there.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't this person.
Right.
I'd interviewed them several times, and every time I would see this other person in their eyes, they would change. Their demeanor would change. Pastor, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
Chaplain, what is that? Well, it's demons.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unseen power, yet it manifests through humans to do these grotesque, evil things.
Well, I think that is one of the things that horrible, horrific tragedies remind all of us of, right? That evil truly does exist in this world. And I heard somebody recently say, but such bad times call for good people.
There you go.
And again, who does that calling?
There you go.
Right? And if you've been chosen to do this job, I hope that the Remnant Revealed, these discussions help those folks drive back to their foundation and stand strong in the middle of the storm. Because
That's right.
Everything is critically dependent on them being able to do that. But here's the key. Having said all that, the spoiler alert is you can't do it in your own strength.
No, you are no competition for this evil power.
That's right. And
on your own.
That's it.
In the flesh.
And invariably, every officer they stumble upon that discovery. Right. And that's where officers get either completely disillusioned.
That's right.
Because they suddenly realize, I can't do this by myself, right? As good as I thought I was, as tactically sound as I think I am, as much as I try to prepare my mind for the things that I may see, I can't do this alone.
You get overwhelmed.
And so at that point, officers are really faced with the proverbial fork in the road, right? Are you going to go down the path of just being disillusioned and being another victim, falling victim to this profession? Or are you going to drill into what really is the foundation of why you're here and what you're called to do? And when we see officers doing that, we see miraculous moves of God that occur through them that take our communities back and fight back the evil one that exists in this world.
Well, they take communities back, families back, their family back, their marriage back. Even in their own personal lives, you see great change.
That's right.
You can hide. The very first thing that Adam did when he was separated from the presence of God in the Garden of Eden, after he and Eve blew it, right? After he blew it, the very first thing he did was he went and he hid. God's come walking through the garden like he had every day with Adam. And he said, Adam, where are you? He was hiding.
Mm-hmm.
An officer, a human being, can hide themselves pretty well. You and I have both had very precious people that we've loved and known that have committed suicide
Mm-hmm.
because of the job, because of what they were involved in, because of their life. They were good at hiding. People were concerned, but nobody believed or thought they would do what they did. So you can hide the fractures, the pain, and the hurt very well. But it will charge you and cost you a price if you're not careful, and it can be your life. I think one of the powerful things about R&R is that our voice, you and I talking and sharing, is really the voice of God speaking to men and women to say, you don't have to hide the pain. There's an answer to it. We know you're tough on the outside. We know you're tough mentally, but you also have to have that foundational stability rock on the inside to withstand the kind of pressure. Not only are you under, I'd love to tell you as a great Bible man that it's going to get better, but I can take you to every scripture to tell you that it's going to get more intense. And our men and women need God in their life. They need the power of God in their life to strengthen them. And he's the only one that called you. He's the only one that can help you. So, hey, thanks for joining us today. Rick and I trust that you heard something that will help your life. And if you believe that it would help others, please make sure and share. Like and subscribe and hit that bell so that you can be notified when the next podcast is available. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.